Good morning and welcome to Sunday Soul Day, weekly fuel for your mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Demisha Craig. Today we have Maya Chupkov. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Amazing. I love pronouncing people's name correctly because mine always gets butchered. So thank you so much. But she is a passionate advocate for stuttering awareness and community empowerment. As the creator, host, producer, and editor of Proud Stutter, Maya is dedicated to changing the narrative around stuttering from one conversation to another. And her journey as a woman who stutters herself has fueled her determination to challenge societal norms, uplift the voices of those in the stuttering community. Welcome to Sunday Soul Day, Maya.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And good morning, Allie. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. Hi, Maya. Thanks for being on the show.
Yes, so excited.
Well, I would love to learn a little bit more about you. I know Allie got to the pleasure of speaking with you in our kind of pre-interview call and can't wait to hear about your journey. But I'd love to just start with, as a woman who stutters, what challenges have you faced in your personal journey? And how has the Proud Stutter like kind of aimed to address some of those challenges that individuals face, but also what you face?
Yeah, so I have experienced a lot of challenges growing up with a stutter and having a stutter now. One of the biggest ones was people just misunderstanding what stuttering is. Um, my stutter is not the, I guess, mainstream version of stuttering that exists. Stuttering is characterized in a very disingenuous way in like pop culture. And so when people experience my stutter, they're not quite sure what it is because it doesn't sound like what they view as stuttering. And so that's probably been the biggest challenge, is feeling just misunderstood my whole life and being judged by how I talk, because people have called me dumb, people have called me, I didn't know what I was talking about, unprepared, like it goes on and on. So it did quite a number on my self-confidence, as you can imagine. Just hearing all those negative things over the years. But I came out on the other side. It took me 29 years to start coming to terms with my stutter, and Proud Stutter is really what I is helping others kind of come to terms with their stutter by hearing from others, and not feeling so alone, because it could be very lonely to have a stutter.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I can only imagine what that did to your self-esteem growing up. I have a follow-up question to that because I would love for you to share with our audience like the difference between like a traditional stutter and, kind of what you're talking about so they can get a better understanding.
Yeah, I would say the type of stuttering that we see in popular culture can sound like, just repetitions of certain consonants, which definitely is a type of stuttering. However, there are millions of different forms of stuttering out there. And so the more, and I don't expect people to know all those millions of different forms, but I think the biggest takeaway is just understand that a person that might have non-standard speech may have something else going on that they can't control, and to just know that it has nothing to do with their intelligence. It has nothing, like it has nothing to do with their personality. It's just literally something that's going on inside their brains that they can't control.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, because I didn't realize that either. Like I'm learning on this show. This is what I love about Sunday Soul Day. I feel like I learn something every single show. But I can imagine that it's something, within the way that the brain processes, and the way that then you deliver the words coming out of your mouth. And so I did not know that, because I'm very familiar with the traditional stutter. You hear it, I mean, I've even done it, on occasion, like trying to process my thoughts, because my brain actually works really fast. And so I didn't realize that there was, a multitude of ranges, just like with anything, really. So thank you so much for educating me.
Yeah, and there is an article I just came across by Nathan Heller, who's a New Yorker um, writer, and he stutters, and he actually did this fantastic, I would call it an essay. It's probably an article, but I would call it an essay about explaining his experience as a person who stutters. And he is one of the most talented writers I've ever um, read. So having someone with his talent be able to describe stuttering, it's like, so like I'm just like getting emotional just thinking about it. So definitely recommend his Slate essay by Nathan Heller.
Yeah, Maya, I can really relate to a lot of what you're sharing. Um, Not with the stuttering in particular, but with struggling with ADHD. I've been labeled as dumb. I've been labeled as unprepared. I've been, unable to get certain thoughts across, or told that I talk too much, and felt very nervous speaking in front of people or large groups of people. So I can really relate, and I'm sure that our audience will be able to um, relate to what you're sharing as well. So thank you for that. Uh, what do you know about the possible cause of stuttering, or causes of stuttering?
Yeah, so I have a few episodes that go into this from folks with like the science background and all that. So I can't speak too much on that. But what I do know is there is a lot of research that shows stuttering can be something to do with genetics. I've interviewed a ton of people who share a sibling or multiple siblings with a stutter. My grandfather had a stutter. Yeah, there's just been so many people I've talked to over the past 3 years who have like family members that who's stutter. So it there's definitely a pattern of like that it runs in families often. So the first thing is genetics. Not too familiar with all the updates around that. The second is it has to do with um, some sort of brain chemistry thing. There is some sort of physiological explanation, or there is research that shows that there might be some sort of neurological or physiological um um issues, or not issues, but like, yeah, the reasons for why a stutter can happen, but there is no definitive research saying this is what causes stuttering. Like it's still a huge mystery, even in the field. Like there are literally scientists and researchers who have dedicated their entire lives to stuttering research, and they still don't know exactly what causes it. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for explaining that, and that there's still no, absolute no known to what is causing the stuttering.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I'm so curious, because I read, a bunch of things as well. Like I was trying to do a little research to educate myself. But one of the things that I came across was, how stuttering and stress are somewhat related. Like, what do you believe is the relationship between stuttering and stress? And can you share your experience around times or maybe circumstances where you stutter more than other times?
Oh, yes. I love this question. Thank you for asking it. Because, yeah, it's definitely something that there is definitely a connection, at least with me. But I have to be careful around saying that like stress doesn't necessarily cause my stuttering, but it does impact it. So because there's you know like when people say, oh yeah, I like stutter when I'm stressed, but like the difference between those one-off examples is that people who stutter, they deal with they think about stuttering all day every day, so that's kind of the difference there. But the thing that really triggers my stutter is if there's any big changes going on in my life, like during COVID, I there was so much happening, like beyond just the stress of being in a pandemic. I changed a job, and it was such a huge jump from any job I ever had. Like it was a director role. So it was just super stressful just to kind of like do a job that kind of was a bit above my skill level. And also I got a puppy, and so there's just a lot happening. Wasn't getting a lot of sleep. So that whole era of my life brought back my stuttering in a way that I had not experienced since like I was little. It was wild to experience it. It was just I felt like I was just yeah, like I was being overtaken with my stutter. I couldn't talk at work. It was just like it was big. It was a big moment. And so yes, I would definitely say that's a big example of how stress can impact
Mhm.
my stutter.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. And I can imagine like how it amplifies it in certain situations. And first, before we go any further, we love dogs here. What kind of puppy do you have?
He
Not that's not a puppy
is
anymore.
he's a Chihuahua mix. He's like
Oh,
a big mutt, so he's mixed with like a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, he's like 20 pounds, brindle, so very cute and unique looking.
so cute. Okay, it's a little sidebar. But back to the actual topic. Have you noticed, and this is a quick follow-up, but like have you noticed like when like in that director role, right? Like where things were probably moving really fast and changing and you're probably pretty stressed. Do you find it like more prevalent like when you're like in meetings trying to talk and convey things or where you're trying to like process your thoughts?
Yeah, not so much processing my thoughts, but when I'm in kind of a stressful environment, either online or trying to facilitate a group where there's like a lot of tension, I tend to stutter more. And then also when I'm like another really clear example I have is I used to volunteer on campaigns, and when I would door knock to strangers and ask them to vote for my candidate, almost every time, like clockwork, I would stutter at the door. It's wild. Like something goes on in my head where I literally am stuttering every single sentence,
Mhm.
which actually ends up helping because people either feel really bad and they're like, oh, you're nervous. Like, of course I'll support. So like I kind of use it to my advantage, but yeah,
Oh,
that that's another situation.
yeah, no, that's so it sounds like just stress in general, like whatever situation really
Yeah.
kind of amplifies it. That's that's really helpful for me to understand, because I have a aunt who stutters, and
Oh.
and it seems like when she's trying to convey things, like, she's moving really fast, but she's like can't quite process, quick enough. And so there's, seems to be a stutter. She has the traditional stutter that you were explaining earlier. So thank you so much for sharing that.
And I love your story about door knocking and then people feeling sorry for you and using that to your advantage. So cute. And
Yeah, I
again,
was like,
yeah, go ahead.
gotta just use it as
Right.
best I can.
Use it for good. Um, so I can again relate to with having ADHD, the stress causes my symptoms to go up. I blank out more often when I'm stressed or out of my routine, doing something brand new or something that's out of my comfort zone. And I don't know about you, but for me, it increases anxiety. Like once I go blank, I'm like, I have that stage fright feeling of, oh gosh, I should know, or I should be able to get this word out, or I know that word, I've used it 100 times and it won't come out. And then I start to get anxiety and panic. And it's a real struggle, especially when you're someone who has to speak in front of people like you and I both have to in our professions. Um, so switching gears a little bit, I want to ask you about Proud Stutter and when did you begin this journey? And what were you doing before this?
Yeah, so I started Proud Stutter when during the pandemic, and um yeah, and I started it because I wasn't happy. I was actually at that job that I said there was a lot of stress around it. And so I just needed a creative outlet, and my husband had encouraged me to start it, and it took me many months to feel comfortable enough to, like, I guess, move forward with the idea. Like I had to do a lot of like my own coming, like, I don't know, just like I had to like get through a lot of things emotionally before I was ready for that. But it happened slowly, slowly. And before Proud Stutter, um, because I still have a full-time job with Proud Stutter, but before I started the podcast, I was moving around jobs. I was in PR, and I went to grad school, and then I did a lot of I worked at a nonprofit around affordable housing, and so kind of jumped around a little bit, but yeah, had never really talked openly about my stutter in like any workplace setting. And then with the job I have now, which I got after I started the podcast, now it's like I can't stop talking about stuttering at work. It's like I talk about it all the time. So yeah, that's kind of the journey. And Proud Stutter is, yeah, it's definitely it's been a journey, because it started as a podcast, but then I wanted to do more, and now I'm kind of in this place where um I'm making a film around stuttering, and so I'm kind of like really staying true to like what I need and where I want to go with stuttering advocacy. And so just really trying to listen to that part of myself of like, what do I want to do? Because yes, it's for other people who stutter too, but like I want to be happy with what I do around it. So it's a journey.
Well, and I think that that's the most important part is that when we are happy with what we're doing, it shines through. And I can only imagine wanting to or feeling like you have to work through some emotional stuff first before you can get out there and talk about something so personal and that has been a big part of your life, for your whole life. So I think it's really great that you're doing this and helping so many people. And you had shared with me that Proud Stutter has been described as aiming to shift societal norms around stuttering. Could you elaborate on some of the misconceptions or stigmas you hope to challenge through the podcast and how you envision achieving this goal?
Yeah, I think I touched on a little bit some of the stigmas like being unintelligent or being misunderstood, mischaracterized as like, yeah, just, as being a certain personality to trait, like being shy, but really like you're not shy and you just stutter and you just listen a lot too. So, those are some big misconceptions. And a lot of people who stutter, including myself, there's just this like deep-seated shame we have around it because like it's really tough to grapple with a stutter when you're a kid or when you're you're going through like the interview process and you get rejected or there's just all these things that keep reminding you that like you have a stutter and that there's all these memories associated. So it's like just when you started feeling good with your day, you have a stuttering episode, it kind of takes you back into this like this weird state of mind. And so what Proud Stutter is trying to do is using storytelling to shift these like cultural norms we have around non-standard speech. And the documentary I'm making is really, I think, where the future of Proud Stutter is heading. So definitely want to continue with the podcast. But I really think documentaries, it has a real power to shift societal norms in a big way. And so now that I'm working on my first film around stuttering, I really am feeling that I just want to make more films. So I feel like the future of Proud Stutter keeps changing, but I feel like filmmaking is definitely going to be a big part of it.
Amazing. I am just so excited about your film, and it's one of the questions I was going to ask you. Like, you're in pre-production stage right now, right? Um, like, tell me a little bit more about like some of the things that we can look forward to in the documentary, and also what kind of support do you need at this stage?
Yes. So we have done our first day of filming with Jade Jordan, which is very exciting. And now we're in the stage where we want to complete the film. Like we have all these ideas of how to build the story around Jay. And we really yeah, we want to bring his story to life. And being a filmmaker while also balancing a full-time job, it's really tough. And so I'm glad you asked about support because we're about to be launching a crowdfunding campaign during Stuttering Awareness Week. And so yeah, it's going to be a huge opportunity for people to support, and not only support, but get a lot, like you'll be able to see behind the scenes footage and hear more of Jay's story and really start getting excited and learning more about the the film and being able to like follow along on our journey to make it. And so the the film is really for people who stutter and also for people who ever felt misunderstood or whoever felt like they, didn't like a part of themselves. It's really about finding strength in what makes you unique.
Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. And like I said, I can't wait to watch it. So um, I want to go back to your podcast a little bit because I was really impressed with the diverse range of guests that you have on. How do you select your guests, and what kind of criteria do you consider when inviting different individuals on and you're sharing their stories on your show?
Yeah, I don't really have a criteria. And I find most of my guests either a lot of them email me now. So now I have kind of like a backlog because so many people have emailing me wanting to be on the show. So that's really exciting. I try to I guess I would say lift up stories that maybe haven't been told yet. So I still I pretty much say yes to everyone. But I kind of bump up and want to lift those that are from maybe like more marginalized backgrounds or ones that we haven't heard from before. Like one example is I've never had a lawyer who's stutters on. And so I just, someone emailed me a woman who is a lawyer. So she's going to be on. And so there's like definitely topics that I'm like, oh, I've never had that before. So that's like a good way of thinking about it. But a lot of it happens organically. Every once in a while, I do some research on social media or people I meet say like, oh, you should interview this like chef who stutters based in Philadelphia. Like I'll get people saying like this really cool person doing really cool things with a stutter. That's another way I get guests too. And so, yeah, it's kind of like there's no structure. It's just like it all kind of happens organically, which can be a little chaotic, but it's kind of how I've been doing it. So, yeah.
I
No,
love I love
beautiful.
that. Um, Beyond sharing personal stories, Proud Stutter also aims to empower people who stutter to make a difference in their communities. Could you discuss some of the advocacy initiatives or community projects that Proud Stutter is involved in or plans to undertake in the future?
Yeah. So one of our biggest campaigns that we're helping people with from all over the globe include passing local resolutions to recognize stuttering awareness holidays. So a few examples is in San Francisco, we're actually Stuttering Awareness Week is right around the corner. So this is kind of like my busiest time. So we're introducing the third resolution, the third year of Stuttering Awareness Week in San Francisco. And so that's something that I wanted to do for my own community here. We also did one last year for California. So I worked with the Speaker of the Assembly, Robert Rivas, who stutters. So California now has a Stuttering Awareness Week resolution. And it's just a really great tool to show and have people realize that they stutter and their community and their policy, their public officials care about them and recognize them. And so that's kind of something that I've been working on with advocates all across the globe. We're working with a teenager in Sydney, Australia on doing one. I worked with My Speech on 2 resolutions in Colorado. And so that's just one way that we're trying to build empowerment, advocacy.
I'm just amazed at what you're doing, and when we're passionate about things, how the sky is the limit.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm equally excited and just like amazed at just within the time frame too. Like you haven't even been doing it this long and you've already accomplished so much, which kind of brings me to my next question, because Proud Stutter is a multi-award winning podcast. And I'm just like inspired by that, like I'm don't know anything about the awards and learning a ton. How did you learn about that, and like what kind of advice do you have for kind of newbies getting started in the podcast game?
I come from a PR and marketing background, and so it's kind of just ingrained in me, for better or worse, that you just have to kind of play the game. And so when I entered like the podcasting world, one of the first things I did was go to a podcasting conference, and that's kind of where I learned about awards. And I was like, okay, well, it would be really cool to have to be able to say I'm an award-winning podcast. And so that was kind of one of my big goals for my first year of doing the podcast, is I wanted to be able to say that. And so I put a lot of my energy into like learning about the awards, talking to the right people, really becoming acquaintances with people in the industry who I knew were on those award panels. And that's kind of how I navigated the system and was nominated for a bunch of awards and won 2 awards last year. So one award was for best do it your own podcast, a Signal award. And then the other award was actually recognizing Proud Stutter as an advocacy organization for our Stuttering Awareness Week campaign. So not only are we award-winning podcast, but I'm also an award-winning nonprofit. So very, very cool to be able to say that now. And now I'm like done with awards because they take too much work, and I'm just like, I'm only one person. So I got what I wanted.
No, it's so cool. It's just amazing. And I love that you were honest in saying that, with your marketing background, because, for me, I don't have a marketing background at all. And so I'm learning, so much. I love the tip that you gave, going to conferences and just really, it goes back to how important community is and surrounding yourself within the community that you're trying to grow in. And so I know that you gave, some suggestions on different events we could go to. And so I'm very grateful for that, and will definitely continue to immerse myself. And I tend to ask a lot of questions. Like I'm not very shy. Like if I see someone doing a great podcast, I'll hit them up and I'm like, hey, like, what can I learn from this person? And, we're in the same space. So I love that you shared that, and just congratulations. Congratulations on everything.
Thank you.
You are doing so much. I want to hear a little bit about what you do to fuel your mind, body, and soul. What are some of your rituals or practices that you can share with our audience?
Yes, this is so important to me, because I understand that if I want to continue at the pace I'm going at, there has to be a nurturing of like my soul, and like feeling good, healthy, and kind of like aligned. And so the first thing I do, I do a lot because I would not be able to do any of this without it. So the first thing I do is I am in a volleyball league. I've been playing volleyball since I was young, like 5 years, like, no, I wouldn't say five. I would say like more like maybe 8 years old. And so volleyball is my happy place. I'm in a league. I play that every week we have a game. The second thing is I run. I don't run every day, but I do run a few times a week. So that's always part of my routine. And then third is a recent thing I did for myself, which has changed my life so much, is I got a personal trainer because I wanted to feel stronger. And I've been doing that now. This is my 4th week. And I thought I felt like a different person after starting Proud Stutter. I completely am a changed person now that I'm like building strength and having a personal trainer. It's definitely not cheap, and it's something that I really can't afford, but it's something that I just wanted to try and see how it would fit. And it's worth every penny. It's the best investment I've ever done.
And that's such a great example of how we have the different components to ourselves, right? Our mind, our body, and our soul, and how improving in one area improves all the other areas.
That is exactly what it's done, is just given me more energy to do the stuff I love.
Yeah, the thing that I love about weight training or lifting in general is like it also builds resilience, and whenever you're doing anything, building, because you're essentially building from scratch, right? Your business. It really helps with that. The reason behind Sunday Soul Day is really like it's fuel for your mind, body, and soul. It's like anyone who listens to your story, to all the other soul fuelers that we've had on, I call our guests soul fuelers. It's like they can take something, and apply it to their life, whether it's to their mind, their body, or their soul. So thank you so much for sharing. You have given so many gems already, brought so many wonderful gems, and I've learned so much through this conversation. But one of the questions that we ask guests is like, do you have any books or podcasts besides your podcast, or any other resources that have impacted you along your journey? I know that you shared the article by Nathan Heller earlier, which was wonderful. But anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, I will say three things. One is I have a comic book that kind of educates around stuttering, and it's for all ages, but it's just a really quick, fun read to learn about what it's like having a stutter. It's also an educational resource. It's called My Stutter: Life of Verbal Turbulence. The second resource is a book by John Hendrickson, Life on Delay. He's a writer for The Atlantic, another amazing writer that really just describes stuttering, and it's a memoir. So it's just, it really is a great read, even if you don't stutter. And the last thing I'll recommend is a musician who has an album called The Clearing. He also has a few books of poems, and his writing and his art is all about being, a Black person with a stutter and connecting that with his ancestral history. And he's a brilliant artist. His name is Jerome Ellis.
I took some serious notes here. I haven't seen any of these, so thank you so much for sharing that. And I didn't know the comic book as well. That's so cool. Amazing.
Yeah, it's hard to like fit it all in, but yeah, I thought I'd just mention that.
No, thank you.
Yeah, Maya, thank you for those recommendations. My last question for you is, so you touched on ways people can get out there and support, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about what are some of the ways that our audience can get involved or contribute to the podcast growth and success in its advocacy initiatives, such as the documentary project.
Yeah, so the documentary project is definitely a big one. We also there's also a lot of opportunities to volunteer. We do events all the time, and so that we have like an events committee that people can volunteer on. And honestly, like I think the biggest thing is just share Proud Stutter with your friends, families, loved ones. Like even if it's just an episode, like like one episode can go a long way to understanding what it's like to have a stutter. And if you have a person who stutters in your life, like this could be a good, what's it called? A good, I guess, starting point to kind of just say like, hey, I've found this cool podcast. Like, I don't know. Like um, I've had really great opening conversations with people who may not have been open about their stutter before, but they hear that there's a podcast about it, and it kind of just empowers them to take that first step to coming to terms. So just a few ideas.
I love that. Thank you.
I have one last question for you. This journey that you've been on has just been a bit of a whirlwind. If you think about it, just you've accomplished so much in such a short amount of time. What's been your favorite part of the journey so far?
Working on this documentary, like I feel like I was born to make this film. Like it's just
Oh, I love.
I've never felt so like I thought Proud Stutter was it, but I'm like, no, it's this film. And this film is everything. And I'm working on it with another person who stutters. Her name's Tessa. And finding her has been the biggest blessing, because being able to work together as a team, uh, and doing this for the first time, like working on our first films together, has just been like the biggest blessing.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on Sunday Soul Day, blessing us, our audience. Your story, your journey is so beautiful. And I just love your vulnerability, on not only here today, but just even in some of your episodes I've listened and will continue to listen through the rest of them. I can't wait to share, I can't wait to share this. And if anyone is on there, please go, leave a review, listen to episodes. That's other ways that you can help. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maya, and good luck with the documentary. And we'll be sharing it and your podcast with as many people as we can. I think that what you're doing is amazing. And as you've shared, the wheels have been turning in my head of different passion projects to kind of give back in a way that is so natural for us. Thank you so much for all of the gifts that you've given us today and blessed us on Sunday Soul Day.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing. And yeah, I loved talking with you both.
Thank you. And everyone, have a beautiful Sunday.